The Chicago Blackhawks were one of the most active teams during day one of the NHL Draft, making some big trades and some big picks. Jack Bushman of Locked On Blackhawks is with us, and we don't have a scandal, Jack, so we get to talk about something good for a change. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Gil Martin, glad to be with you today, and thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Blackhawks, Jack Bushman. And Jack, boy, was your team active over the weekend. And, you know, you started off with no picks, ended up with 3, but the big trade that created that, the Alex DeBrincat no longer with the team. Talk to me about that trade and how your thoughts about it have evolved from when the first news broke.
Yeah, first glance, I mean, it was a little frustrating to see that minimal of a return, and I think every Blackhawks fan kind of felt the same way, especially after some of the rumors leading up to the actual deal. We were hearing the Blackhawks turned down 2 first-round picks and a mid-level prospect. Like, there were high expectations going into this trade that if the Blackhawks did trade Alex DeBrincat, it was going to be for a pretty big haul. And another reoccurring theme that was talked about a lot by the Blackhawks media leading up to the first day of the NHL Draft was how they didn't have to trade Alex DeBrincat. They didn't absolutely need to, right? We know Kyle Davidson wanted to get back in the first round, and Alex DeBrincat was really their best chance of doing so. But I think we felt confident that Kyle Davidson was going to get such a big return because we felt comfortable thinking that he knew they didn't have to trade him. And ultimately, even Elliot Friedman himself said it when the trade happened. Like, it just felt like ultimately Kyle Davidson, the front office, were like, all right, we got to get this deal done here. It felt like they kind of, I don't know, just rushed it a little bit. So I was a little frustrated with that return, and it was certainly a tough start to the day. But then after the other couple of moves that Davidson was able to make, I think it was a little bit easier to swallow. I really liked both the Kirby Dock trade and the trade to take on Peter Mrazek's contract and get back into the first round for a third time. So that, I think, has made it a little bit easier to swallow the pill of this DeBrincat trade, but no way, shape, or form. I was definitely disappointed, and as was the entire fan base, basically, for the return of a 2-time 40-goal scorer who's really established his all-around game. He probably coming off the best year of his career. He's also been killing penalties recently, been an asset on the penalty kill. So to only get 1 first-round pick and not even another one in next year's loaded NHL draft and not adding to the prospect pool, like, I think there's no way around it. It was a minimal return for Alex DeBrincat, and I was still a little disappointed for sure.
And he's so young, too.
Right.
But
I understand that the contract, I think, kind of hurt the Blackhawks a little bit, especially because DeBrincat hasn't signed an extension with Ottawa. And if he does get that qualifying offer of $9 million, that could only be a 1-year deal away from being a UFA. So maybe that hurt the Blackhawks a little bit. But still, I think it's underwhelming, no way around it. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding on Kevin Korchinski, who I'm really high on, but he's always going to be tied to that Alex DeBrincat trade. And it's going to be tough for sure.
now, what did you like about the other 2 deals?
For the Kirby Dock deal, we heard on draft day was really the first kind of talk that discussions on him were picking up. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, I guess Kirby Dock's available. I know he was a pending restricted free agent, but it really felt likely. And there weren't even conversations around his name for a majority of the offseason. But then when those rumors first came out, Scott Powers of The Athletic for the Blackhawks, who does a phenomenal job, he reported that the Blackhawks were hoping to get a top 15 pick in return for Kirby. And the fan base and everyone was kind of like, all right, is someone actually going to give that up, though, for Kirby? Like, I think it's good for the Blackhawks to be asking for a return that high, but I wasn't really expecting anyone to make that move. And to get the 13th overall selection and another third round pick, like, I think that was a deal that the Blackhawks really had to do. And this comes from someone who really embraced Kirby Dock, even though he had his share of struggles throughout his first couple of seasons in the NHL with the Blackhawks. Like, I never really thought he got the fair end of the bargain. The Blackhawks didn't do him any fair share in his development. Like, and this really should have been his rookie year, but instead people were kind of comparing him to Trevor Zegras and all this stuff. Like, I just didn't think he got a fair pick in Chicago. So I think it's going to be good for him to have a fresh start in Montreal. But at the end of the day, to get that 13th overall pick, who we ended up taking Frank Nazar with, and then also a third round pick, like, I think that's an optimal return for Kirby Dock. So that was a trade I think Kyle Davidson had to say yes to. I think Frank Nazar has the higher ceiling of Kirby Dock, and we got an extra pick in there. So to me, that was one you just had to say yes to. As tough as it is to see Kirby Dock go, I know all Blackhawks fans don't feel that way, though.
And then adding a goalie later on, your thoughts on that trade?
Yeah, to me, that was kind of just a no-brainer win-win. And there are some fans out there who are saying that the Blackhawks kind of let Kyle Dubas and the Maple Leafs off easy by unleashing that $3.8 million AAV on Peter Mrazek for the next 2 years, considering what Edmonton had to give up to move Zach Kassian. There are some people who were upset that Kyle Davidson and the Blackhawks didn't charge Kyle Dubas more than just 13 spots moving down to unload that contract. But ultimately, Kyle Davidson got what he wanted to, right? He got back into the first round, got that third first-round pick, took Sam Rinzel, who he was their guy, and they didn't believe he was going to be there at number 38, so it really didn't cost them anything at all to go back up into the first round and get their guy to make sure that, hey, he's still here, let's go and get him while we know he's available. And look, someone needs to play goaltender for the Blackhawks next season, right? They have a couple prospects who are just starting to step on the scene, one being Arvid Soderblom, who Blackhawks organization is really high on, but they're not trying to rush him in. They don't want him to be the opening night starter come next season, and they needed someone to be in goal next year and just do the job, right? So Peter Mrazek's going to be able to do that for the team now, and to be able to get that and a third first-round pick, me personally, I think it's a free win for the Blackhawks. I get that they might have let Kyle Dubas and the Leafs off easy, but they got what they wanted to, and it cost them literally nothing. So I can't be anything but happy about that deal as well.
And after these three picks and the trades, where do you think this puts the Blackhawks in their rebuilding program?
Yeah, it's going to be a slow, patient approach for this team the next handful of years, right? They're not really focused on wins and losses, certainly for this next season. But the biggest thing for Kyle Davidson, I think, is just to get this right. They don't care how many years it's going to take. They understand that they're going to be very patient with this, and they just want to make sure they're properly developing guys, not rushing them onto the scene so fast, developing and getting high first round picks. That's the name of the game for the Blackhawks at this point. So this just kind of really should kind of hit home for Blackhawks fans that this is really how it's going to be, right? Alex DeBrincat's gone. Dylan Strome's not expected to be brought back as a restricted free agent. Same with Dominic Kubalik. Patrick Kane's now going to have conversations with the organization and his agent again. So it's kind of just all happening so fast. And the reality is that, hey, listen, it's all about the future. It's all about the 18, 19, 20-year-olds we have now, stacking on as many draft assets as we can get, and hopefully, putting something together that can be special in 4 to 5 years. So it's really just no rush at all, and it's really clear and evident by the moves that they made this weekend.
All right, Jack, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Absolutely. You can find Locked On Blackhawks wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's 100% for free, so go and check it out there. As for me, myself, you can find me out on Twitter at JackBushman2. And if you want to check out the Locked On Blackhawks Twitter account, you can do so at LO_Blackhawks as well. All
right, Jack, always a pleasure to have you here, and finally to have you here on better news. Thanks again for coming by.
Absolutely. Always a lot of fun, Gil. I'll be talking to you soon, hopefully.
Our next sponsor has a product I literally use every day. I started taking AG1 because I'm not a big pill taker and I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. So what is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All these things. And it's lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting great. And it costs less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a can of water every day, and that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.